I'm sitting here with my grandson, Tanner Johnson. He's running the camera here, recording this for Mrs. Schaffers, your teacher. My name is Herb Johnson. I just celebrated my 90th birthday on the 22nd of January. I was born 6 miles southwest of Cortland, Kansas, and we lived down on that farm. It was homesteaded by my grandfather, Perry Johnson, and I started school down there at Bowling School, which is 1 mile from that farmstead. Then the family moved west to Cortland, Kansas. And I think it was 1931. And our home was located along old Highway 36. It used to run east and west, and it would come through Cortland. Now it's a big highway north of town. But I'll tell you a little story about the dirty 30s. My mother at night would wet down sheets and try to cover the windows and the doors to keep the dirt out. And also when we go to bed, we'd throw a wet sheet over our heads so we didn't have to breathe that air. It hadn't rained for months and months and months. Terrible drought. And in those days, you didn't have the equipment and machinery to stop the soil from blowing, because everything was done by old-time implements and horses. But it lasted about 2 years, if I recall. Along the highways, I'm sure most of you have ridden with your parents in an automobile with fog. It's heavy and you can't see anything. Well, that's the way it was with dust storms. They'd blow mainly during the afternoons and night. And the ditches along the road were full of dirt. We had an old mailbox along the driveway, and the dirt was clear up to the mailbox. And we did get to, normally the wind at night would die down a little, and we'd go to school, and then the wind would start blowing, and all that fine dirt would be blowing across the road. You couldn't see. Very, very bad. And there was more than one night we had to stay in Cortland with some friends because we couldn't get home. Couldn't see the highway. That happened more than once. My dad raised cows, of course, and pigs. And he had a rope from the front gate to the barn, where at night, if he had to go and check on the livestock, he could get to the barn, because at that time there was no electricity. So it was really dark. No yard lights or anything. And he'd follow that rope to the barn so he knew where he was going, and then back to the house. If you'd have walked out there by yourself, you'd have probably got lost. It was, and there was a shortage of water at that time too. Being there was no rain, the cisterns were dry, there were no drinking water, so my dad would go to town in Cortland, Kansas, and fill several cream cans full of water to bring home to drink and take a bath. And it was that when you get up in the morning, my mom always covered the kitchen table with a wet cloth, and it would be covered with dirt. But that's how bad it was. And I learned in later years, a lot of those old farmsteads they tore down, and there were 4 or 5 inches of dirt up in the attics of those houses at that time. But it was so dry it was hard to raise any kind of a crop, but they managed to raise a little cane or something to feed the livestock. And at the table, if you had any scraps, you sure didn't throw them away. You kept them for the pigs and the chickens, because everybody had chickens. But we survived, and in 1936 it started to rain a little. And it got better, and in 37 they raised a good wheat crop for the first time in about 5 years. So that the farmers kind of got back on their feet a little bit after the dirty 30s. There was a lot of sickness. The dirt caused a lot of pneumonia. Dr. Mccomas was the doctor here in Cortland, and at that time they made office calls and or farm calls, but we got through it, and everything got better. And I was trying to think if there's anything more that I can relate to you about those dirty 30s. Oh, on some days when the wind was in the south, Oklahoma was going through the same thing, and the sky would be red, with red dirt blowing in from Oklahoma. That was, you look back, and that was kind of interesting. But we got through it. Everybody remained healthy. We didn't have any sickness in our family, and we are blessed to where we are today. And thank you, Mrs. Schaffers, for giving me the opportunity to talk about this, and I hope this will be something your kids will remember. Now, my ancestors were Swedish, and I'm going to say a few Swedish words. And det ska gå hem nu. Goddag. Translated in English, it means I'm going home now, and goodbye. Thank you.